And just like that, we're back. Guess what, y'all? We're back like we never left. So we are waiting for the litigants to return, so to speak. The prosecution and the defense, they're not suing each other, so they're not litigants. But the prosecution and the defense are um, uh, trying to get it together. Maybe, they decide to take a little break and go before and discuss a few little things, two or three. But let me tell you something. If you know Eliseo Bishop, if you know the history of Eliseo Bishop, Natureboy, you know that he's a very arrogant, stubborn, narcissistic person, and that his pride stands before anything. So even if he's wrong, he's going to find a way to make it right and make another person wrong. The reason why I'm saying that is because, as I said before, in order for, if they offer him a plea deal, in order for the plea to be accepted, he has to get on the stand and tell the judge everything that he did and everything that he was guilty of in order for her to say, okay, I'll accept your plea. If she doesn't believe him, or he does not convince her that this plea was not because he was coerced or somebody said this, that, and the third, or they offered to do, or they said they would do something to him, and the line of questioning that they give, then she can deny the plea. But because of the person that he is not about to sit on that stand. I don't believe that he's going to sit on that stand and say that he forced that girl into any sexual activity. He's not going to say that he posted any videos. He's not going to say that he's guilty of anything. He's not going to sit and say those egregious things that has been said about. He's not going to say it. He's not going to do it. So with this, I've just learned breaking news that allegedly he denied to take the plea deal. So now he's facing life for the R charge and up to 10 years, I believe, for each count for the other things. So there's a possibility that this dude is going to spend life, 30 years to life in prison for this because he refused to take the plea deal, which was, the last I heard, was 7 years. Now, he's already been in the county for 2. Maybe they would have counted those, gave him a day or so off for time served or something like that, which means he would have probably had another 5-6 years to go, maybe 4 to 6 years ago, what have you. Not to mention that he's still going to be coming up against charges for trying twice to get contraband into the prison, and any other violations that he may have come against that we don't know about. And not to mention any other charges that may arise from this whole situation. So do I think it's a good idea that he denied the plea? It's a 50-50 chance. It's always 50-50 because you just never know. We have thought on so many occasions that so many cases were cut and dry. Like we didn't think that the Rodney King verdict would come out like it did. We didn't think a whole lot of things, and then when they turned LA upside down, it was a mess. So you just never know. You just never know how these things could go. But I think that he's taking a chance. I think he's taking a chance. The only other thing is that he feels in his heart of hearts that he's not guilty of something. And now, if he feels that he's not guilty of it, honestly and truthfully, then I can't blame him for fighting. Um, I think it's a win on the prosecution side either way, because either way it's a conviction. Whether it's a conviction by a plea deal or whether it's a conviction by a trial, it's a win. I think the other difference is that it takes a lot less of money, lot less of the people's money and time if you were, to take a plea and this, that, and the other. So, it remains to be seen, y'all. It just remains to be seen. We're still waiting. I'm being vigilant on watching to see if they're going to come back live soon and resume with the trial, or what they're going to do. But right now, it appears that it appears that they're still not live, because I'm watching and waiting. They don't even have anything set up. They shut everything down. So yeah, at this point we're just watching and waiting, guys. And this is interesting. It's very interesting. And not to mention, it's going to take a lot of people through a lot of emotional reliving of some of the tumultuous things that they've been through. Like, I mean, some of the things that they went through in terms of the domestic violence and things of that nature, they have to relive that when they get on the stand, especially sitting in front of him. When you got to sit in front of the person that actually did these things to you and recount those things, I'm pretty sure it's going to be tough for these women. Um, and if he had an ounce of regret, you know, that will also be interesting. But he really feels like he didn't do this thing, or like he's God with a little G, three God, whatever. Man, this is whoa. I didn't expect for it to go like this. I mean, I did expect a few little loops here and there, but I didn't expect for him to deny the plea again. See, because this is the second time they offered him a plea deal and he denied it. This is the second time. And the prosecution just wants a conviction. They just want a conviction. They don't want this dude to walk because they feel that he's guilty. And see, my thing is, sometimes you can base your feelings or base your convictions on feelings because it strikes you emotionally. So you have a gut feeling that someone has done something. You have a gut feeling that a person might be guilty of something, but you don't necessarily have the evidence to prove it. Yes, they have videos. Yes, they have testimony or statements from these young ladies. Yes, they have all these other things. And listen, I really think this guy is a hunk of crap. I think he's a narcissistic beast. I really do. I wouldn't put past anything that they say that he's done. But legally, legally, that's the problem. Just because I witnessed him do things on live in real time, or just because I've heard testimony of some of the things that he's done, and I've been wanting that cult to be dispersed forever, and him to be just taken down forever, just because that's what I wanted. I'm not there when the cameras go off or the phones, when the lives end. I'm not there to see what exactly is going on. I'm not there. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more that goes on when those phones are off, when those cameras are off. We don't call them cameras. When the cameras are off, as opposed to when they are actually running and we see and witness the things that were going on. That was horrible enough. But just because he does something or said to have done something in a court of law, you got to be able to prove it. And again, the burden of proof is on the prosecution, not the defense. The defense does not have to prove his guilt. The defense has to prove his innocence. That's why they say he is innocent until proven to be guilty. So right there, he's sitting there. He's not convicted. Had he taken that plea, then he would have been. But the prosecution has a job to prove. Hey, sugar. Oh my God, I love you. I'm so glad to see you here. I've been calling and texting and texting and calling, but I'm so glad to see you here, and we're gonna leave that alone. If you don't know, we're talking about the Natureboy trial, which started it actually started Tuesday. It was supposed to start Tuesday, but it's going on, and right now they are taking some time out. Okay, honey. Okay, you know what? This is a reply. I love you. I send you hugs back. I love you on purpose, and it ain't nothing you can do about it. I'm glad you was catching. Okay, good. So, yeah, right now we're waiting for them to come back live. I've been checking periodically, refreshing the page to see if they have come back live and resumed, so that we will get the full of what's the next step. But from my understanding, from the news that I just got, he denied the plea deal. He denied the plea deal, and we already know why. Yeah. He denied the plea deal, and 9 times out of 10, he denied it simply because he didn't want to get on the stand and said that he was guilty, say that he was guilty of what he's being accused of, what is alleged that he supposedly have done. Again, like I said, by the burden of proof being on the prosecution, we're hoping that the prosecution has their ducks in a row in order to land a conviction. If not, there's a chance the dude might get off. There's a chance that he just might get off. And some of the reasons being is that some of the things that Janae, aka Naturi, said was, she wasn't able to leave, or they wouldn't let her leave. And some of the same things, some of the same things was said. My cat scratched, and he likes to scratch the wall, and he has a whole tower in there. But some of the things that They said when they said that he wouldn't let them leave or things like that, but we've seen them leave and come back and leave and come back several times. So will that would that like taint credibility in some of the things that they've said? I'm not saying that I'm with the shenanigans at all, but I'm just saying these are some of the things that the defense could possibly bring up. Why is she saying that she couldn't leave when she left like 3 or 4 times and she came back? Why is she saying this and when she did that? And then why is she saying that, I are her, our word her, and then she said that we made love. Why is it this and why is it that? So, there are all they have to have is reasonable doubt. You know what I'm saying? If they have a reasonable amount of doubt to say, they can't, you can't convict somebody unless you have beyond reasonable doubt. You have to feel secure in the fact that the evidence that was presented before you is uh, conclusive and secures a conviction. You can't convict somebody with doubt, with real. I'm not. I don't really think he did it, but I'm going to convict him because they said he did. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? And if these jurors are law abiding and following the instructions that's given by the judge, and they follow those instructions to a T, they have an obligation to follow those. And if they feel in any way or doubt that this cat might not be as guilty as acute, then there's a possibility, But if they feel beyond a reasonable doubt that this dude did these things, then he's going upstate for the next 30 years. So, it all remains to be seen. And baby, we are definitely watching. We're definitely watching. Oh my goodness, it's got me on pins and needles at this point. It's got me on pins and needles. I'm still waiting to see when they're going to resume. Should might be close to noon before they come back. It's almost 11 now, so it might be close to noon before they even come back. And I'm checking more than one source. Checking more than one source to see what's going on. But right now, baby, let's see here. Let me see what this is, guys. Mm-hmm. Let's see what this is, guys. Yeah, they're instructing the jury. They look like a demon. Oh, he is a demon.
You can see that? Okay, very good. All right, jurors are not allowed to question witnesses. If you have a question that comes up in your mind while the evidence is being presented, please keep in mind that you have not heard all the evidence, and your question may very well be answered by the time the rest of the evidence is presented. You should consider the evidence with an open mind, and you should not reach any final conclusions until the trial is over. Do not jump to any conclusions before all the evidence is presented. Now, to maintain the integrity of the jury system, I remind you that you must decide this case based only on the evidence submitted during the trial and the law I will explain to you. You may not conduct any research on your own about this case or about any people or places mentioned during the trial. You may not visit any places mentioned in the evidence. You may not refer to any books or documents that were not admitted during the trial. You may not use dictionaries or other reference materials to look anything up. You may not use Google, YouTube, or any other internet, I don't even know what the word would be, internet access, websites, blogs, or anything else, or any electronic devices or any electronic media to get any information about this case. Nor should you use any of these sources to get information about legal terms or about the law. And finally, you may not read or listen to any accounts of this trial that may appear in the news, on TV, on the radio, online, in print, or in any other fashion. And again, you'll be subject to penalties for contempt of court if you violate these instructions. Remember, you are the ones who have been qualified as fair and impartial jurors to decide this case. No other influence should affect your decision. For that reason, you may not discuss this case with anyone, including family and friends, or let anyone discuss this case with you or around you. This includes discussing or sharing information by email, texting, blogging, or any form of social media. Until actual deliberations begin, that is, and after you've heard all the evidence, the lawyer's closing arguments, and the law that applies to this case, you may not discuss this case even among yourselves, in the jury room during any breaks, recesses, or anywhere else. Now, we've given you notepads and pens, so you can take notes if you would like. You're not required to, but you are certainly welcome to. If you do take notes, please remember to not let your note-taking distract you from paying full attention to the evidence and to the witnesses. And also, you may not share or discuss your notes with anyone until you start deliberating at the conclusion of the trial. Notes are evidence. Notes are not evidence. They are simply memory aids. They are not more important than your own impression or memory of what the evidence may have been. While you may consider, during deliberations, another juror's notes to refresh your memory, you should rely on your own memory of the proceedings. Do not be influenced by the notes of other jurors unless their notes help you in determining your own independent memory. You must leave your notes in the jury room except when you're in the courtroom, and they will be secured in chambers overnight, and so nobody will have access to them. And they will be shredded at the end of the deliberations. This is really important. You will not get a transcript of witnesses' testimony. So you're going to have to remember, in whatever way works best for you, what the witnesses said on the stand. So during deliberations, if you have a question comes up, well, what did the witness say about such and such? And you ask, I'm going to tell you, you have to remember the testimony based on your collective recollection. There is no transcript available to you. All right. I think those are all the preliminary instructions I have. So we are ready now to proceed with the opening statements, and the state gets to go first. Thank you.
Just a moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good morning. The thread that runs through this entire story, really from the very beginning, is a desire, a thirst for knowledge, something on a spiritual level, something that transcends eras, cultures, and distance. Young people experiencing and coming out into the world on their own for the first time, longing for a kind of knowledge, spirituality. Eligio Bishop promised that. He promised that he had all of the answers to all of their questions, the answers to their prayers, and that he could fill their spiritual voids. He alone could speak the truth. He alone showed them what they could be, in tune with nature, living off the land, a communal sort of paradise. Janae Newell first saw Eligio Bishop and his group in a restaurant where she worked. She was 22, it was about 2018. She was intrigued. The way they dressed, the way they talked, they seemed so genuine. She kept in touch with the defendant online, and she was planning a trip overseas to Bali. Instead, she left home and joined Ben's group. At first, it was everything Janae had hoped. The sense of community and the idyllic tropical locations masked the trouble brewing. His word was law. Some of the rules didn't make sense. They couldn't use the bathroom inside. They only ate when he was hungry. He chose who they could date or with whom they could sleep. When somebody disobeyed a rule or was having a bad day or did anything to upset the defendant, they became the enemy, the scapegoat, the focus of his ire. They were the problem, and the group followed the defendant. As they traveled around from Decatur, Mexico, Hawaii, California, Belize, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, and finally back to Decatur, things only got worse. It became power for power's sake. And he held all of the power. Janae left. She flew back to Georgia, but she was still longing for belonging, and things at home really weren't going all that great. And for a time, she resorted to selling her body. And after a while, after watching the group from afar online, Janae went back. This time, they were in Puerto Rico. Janae noticed that things were more volatile, more violent. She stayed for a while, and then she left again for a second time. Janae went back for the last time in 2021. The group was in Decatur at a home on Arbor Chase. There were about 20 members staying there at the time. Now, one thing about the group, when a person joined this group, they were given a new name. And so during trial, you will hear folks referred to by their legal name, and you will also hear them referred to by the name they were given in the group. And this is confusing, I know. We have created a demonstrative aid, basically just a big whiteboard, that lists several of the people you will probably hear about this week. And you may want to take notes as well if that's easier for you so you're not glancing over there. But Janae Newell, she was known by Nateri. So you may hear Janae referred to as Janae. You may hear her referred to as Nateri. Kendra Carter, whom you will hear from this week, Kendra went by Sheba. Brianna was Syrian. Velvet was Nana. Aaron Dixon, he went by True or Ace. You will hear from all of them this week. Courtney Townsend went by Solar. You may also hear about some other members. Portia Wade goes by Aya. Tanisha Dulay is Malia. Kayla Buckner is Afro. And so on. Another thread that runs through this case is power. This defendant's desire to maintain power over the people in his group, how he accomplished that, and what he did with that power and control. By 2021, when Janae was back in the group, she will tell you the defendant would get angry over the smallest thing. he would order one member to hit another member. He lashed out at Miss Malia, one time when she tried to leave. What you will hear from all of the former members who testified this week, from Aaron, from Kendra, from Janae, Brianna, and Velvet, from all of them, you will hear that there was this atmosphere of fear and violence within the group, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Who was going to be next? Power, accomplished through the ever-looming threat of physical violence. The second part of that practice, though, what the defendant did with that power. The answer to that, the evidence will show, is sex. You will hear, again from the former members, that this defendant had his choice of the women in the group. It was understood. Nobody said no to the king. To God, to him. You will hear from Janae, from Kendra, from Brianna, what he did and how he did it. And all this time, from 2018 to 2021, as it turns to 2022, all of this time he is fostering an us against them attitude. The outside is hell, he said. They don't understand. They are out to get us. So separate from all loved ones, family and friends, reliant on him for every meal, shelter, affection, community, not surprisingly at work. When the defendant's anger was focused on one, the others piled on. When he ordered one to hit another member, they complied. When he demanded sex from Janae, or demanded that she allow him to film it, she went along. Now I want to be clear. Janae went back to the group multiple times. There were times that there was consensual sex between Janae and this defendant. And obviously, it will be obvious to you, obviously she cared very deeply about him for a period of time. His name was tattooed on her body. And she did allow him to film her. That all happened. But it happened in this broader context. That matters. And I think it will matter to you in this case. In late March of 2022, Janae had become a little disillusioned, a little unsure about the group. It was nighttime, March 24th, 2022, and it was another of his long, long talks. They were sitting downstairs, and Janae just wasn't feeling it. And her face showed it. He told Zoka, Jayon, that she should keep Janae in line. It was understood what that meant. And a little while later, something happened. Janae made another face or something. And Jayon smacked Janae. He didn't stop it. It was Janae's fault. Her turn to be the scapegoat, the them in this ever-present us against them. At his urging, implicit or explicit, Jayon smacked Janae again and again. He ordered Janae on her knees, and Jayon smacked her again. Janae had enough. She was leaving again, and she said as much. And nobody stopped her, at least at first. She got her bag, started to pack a few things, retrieved some of her art that was stored in a shed outside, and she said some goodbye. The Uber was waiting outside. There was some dispute about a phone charger as she's walking out the door. Then someone said, "The king is calling. Will you answer the king's call?" And Janae did. She asked the Uber to wait. This would only take a second. She walked upstairs to say her final goodbye. When Janae reached his room, he grabbed her in his arms and literally would not let her go. She was crying, and she told him she had to leave, that he would not let her go. He asked for sex one last time. She told him no. She had to leave, but he would not let her go. He asked again, and again. She said no, again and again. He put her on the bed. She told him no. She had to leave, but he would not let her leave. He asked again, one last time. And finally, after countless times of saying no, realizing she wasn't leaving that room unless she gave in, she said, okay. They started having sex and she pushed him off. But even then, he would not let her leave. He flipped her over and penetrated her from behind as she was crying. Janae escaped the next morning before anyone woke up. She went to her friend Kelly's art studio, then to a shelter and on from there. She never went back. In the meantime, on March 28th, Janae received messages online asking if she was back in the group. She was confused. She realized they thought she was back in the group because 4 videos have been posted to the defendant's Twitter account showing him and Janae having sex. He posted these videos on March 27th, after Janae had escaped. The evidence will show he posted these videos without Janae's consent for the purpose of harassment. Yes, the videos depict consensual sex well before Janae left. And yes, Janae probably knew that the defendant was reporting the sex. And they may have been online before, throughout this case. The evidence will show the time to maintain that power, to demonstrate that power, even after Janae escaped. The final overarching thread that runs through this case is the online presence and life that many of these young people live. Much of the day-to-day lives of this group were streamed online, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Bigo. And many of the former members that will testify this week still maintain large online presences today. As the former members will tell you, what happened in the group actually happened. This wasn't acting for the cameras or the clicks. The violence was real. The emotional manipulation was real. And the tense threat of looming violence was real. In addition to Janae, you will hear the stories of Kendra Carter, who joined the group in late 2018, of Brianna Jacobs, Aaron Dixon, and you will hear from Velvet Marquette. For a while, Velvet was married to the defendant. They have a daughter together. She was in the group for a while, up until about 2020, and you will get to hear her story. At the end of this case, after you have heard all of the evidence, the judge will instruct you on the law that applies to this case, including the law that sexual intercourse obtained through fear or intimidation is not consensual. After you have heard all of the evidence, which includes the testimony of witnesses, we will once again address you and ask that you return a verdict which speaks the truth, the guilty verdict.
Thank you, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Judge. One last gentleman. In March of 2022, that is the date that this alleged incident happened. The state just spent a lot of time talking to you about a lot of things, but they didn't talk to you about March 24th, 2022. That's what you're deciding on. Not what happened in 2021, 2020, or any time before that. They're going to avoid March 24th, 2022. March 24th, 2022, Janae Newell, who is the alleged victim in this case, alleges that this young man here, Elijah Bishop, raped her. The judge is going to tell you what rape means, but that he penetrated her against her will and with force. That's what she said happened on March 24th, 2022. That she also was falsely imprisoned by Elijah Bishop, meaning that she was not allowed to leave. Okay? That's what the state has proved to you. Not about anything that happened anywhere else, not about other people, but it's what happened between him and her on March 24th, 2022. And I'm going to ask as you go through this trial that you listen and focus on that date. Because right now, this is going to be a can't see the forest for the trees type of case that the state is presenting to you. Additionally, there are charges for revenge porn, for posting something on the internet in order to essentially embarrass her or harass her. So let's go back and look at March 24th, 2022. This defendant, along with some other people, were living in a house. It essentially was a polygamous relationship. This defendant had a woman that was considered to be his queen, and then there were other women that were there as well. We're not here to hide it from you. That's not what he's charged with, okay? Now, on March 24th, 2022, Janae Newell indicated, based on what she told law enforcement, that she wanted to leave the house. And so she wrote text messages on that day that will be evidence. But other things that are going to be extraordinarily relevant about March 24th, 2022 is her interview with law enforcement and the different things that she did. So on March 24th, 2022, she ended up leaving the house the next morning, which was the 25th. Okay. But on that day, between the time she talks to law enforcement, which is not until April of the next month, essentially, 2 weeks later, she gives an interview to law enforcement. She never actually tells law enforcement that Mr. Bishop raped her. What she did was she came down to the DeKalb County Courthouse and she attempted to get a misdemeanor warrant against Mr. Bishop. And in that misdemeanor warrant, she didn't say anything about being raped. She said that he had posted some videos online that she wanted him to take down. That was it. She never said anything about being falsely imprisoned, because she had to make a sworn application in front of a judge in order to get a warrant taken out. So they scheduled a hearing. In that, there was never a single word about rape. She also gave an online interview with a YouTube interviewer, another person. In that interview, she described making love, is what she described. She used the words making love. And I know these are difficult terms to hear. We're adults, so we're gonna have to have adult conversations. Rape, obviously, is a act that there is no love in. There is two people, and an act happens, and one of them obviously doesn't want it, the other one forcibly does it. You cannot get further from that when you use the words making love. So in her interview that was recorded with YouTube, where she was interviewed by another person, she described going back into the house and that she and Mr. Bishop made love. Those were the words that she used. She additionally said that she believed Mr. Bishop was faking it, that he didn't really love her, but that he was faking being excited to have intercourse with her. Not a single word about rape, not a single word about false imprisonment. After that, she gives another interview, this time to police. And when she, in the first 5 minutes of the interview to police, she describes that they are making love. That's the words that she used. She does not use anything about rape. It's not until much further in the interview where the police asked her, well, was this consensual? And her words were, I don't know. She never says rape. She also speaks to Eva Wilson right after, on the night of the 24th, by text message and phone call. That was her substitute mother. And Eva Wilson asked her, hey, what's going on? She never says anything about being raped. She never describes being forced to do anything. Simply put, she asked her if she can come and pick her up. This case is one where the goal of the state is to be able to show you a lot of other things, but you're to decide on March 24, 2022, whether a rape took place. Now, addressing false imprisonment. The state's going to say, and they're going to put in evidence or try to, that Mr. Bishop falsely imprisoned her. And you just heard the state through his words, and his words and my words are not evidence. But you just heard the state say that she left the house, she had called an Uber. I can't imagine how you would be falsely imprisoned if you have the ability to call an Uber. But she alleged that she was being beaten by another person. And so because she was being beaten by this other person, she decided to leave. That's what he just said. She packed her bags. Nobody stopped her from packing bags out. She was able to get her paintings out of the storage. Nobody stopped her from doing that. They don't even describe, according to what he just said, Mr. Bishop stopping her from doing anything. She gets outside to an Uber that she's somehow able to call. And yet she's been beaten so bad, according to her. When she gets out to the Uber, she decides that she wants to go back in and say goodbye to a person who allegedly has treated her so bad for so long. That's not false imprisonment. You don't want to go back inside and say hello to a person that has been a person that has beaten you and mistreated you. So I ask that you pay attention to all those things. Additionally, the state just indicated in their opening statement that the videos that they are alleging that he posted subsequent to her leaving to harass her is what they're alleging, that those videos were actually posted before she left. It wasn't the first time these same videos were posted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a complicated case, but it becomes extraordinarily complicated when we tie in a bunch of other stuff that doesn't have to do with March 24th, 2022. This case is about March 24th, 2022. And as you hear the questions that are asked of Ms. Newell from myself, from the state, and anybody else that's involved in it, focus on March 24th, 2022, and that she gave to law enforcement, the statements that she made to her friends and family, the statements that she made by text message, the statements that she made to the magistrate court here in DeKalb County. Think about all those statements where she never says the word rape. She never says that she was forced to have sex. She never gives a description of what Mr. Covington just described to you at any given time before that. And I would venture to say that the state during this trial will never, before you put that in evidence, that at the end of the trial, all those things I just told you, they won't put in evidence anything that controverts that, because that evidence doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. She described making love. And we're all, 14 of you guys are adults. You know there's a wide discrepancy from someone making love versus someone being raped. Now, the state asked you during the for-die process, was it an issue with things being delayed? This is not about a delay. This is a totally different statement than rape. So please, as you listen to the evidence in this case, don't get lost on online persona. Don't get lost on multiple women being with Mr. Bishop. Don't get lost on what other people say. On this particular date, March 24th, 2022, at the end of this case, your minds will be unsettled and wavering, which law requires those to be satisfied in order for Mr. Bishop to be found guilty. And we're going to ask that you return a verdict of not guilty on behalf of each count for Mr. Bishop. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. All right. Call your.
So what do you guys think of the opening arguments at this point? Who do you think gave the best opening statement? You think the prosecution did a good job? Or do you think the defense did a good job rebutting what the prosecution said? And if you had to go by what you've heard so far, how would you be swayed? Even though you haven't heard all of this evidence, but just based upon what we heard so far. Just wondering. Leave your comments. This is going to be an interesting case, though, y'all.
How old are you today?
29.
And what do you do on a day-to-day basis these days?
I work. I serve at the Chili's in North Carolina, and I take care of my daughter.
How old's your daughter?
7 months.
Do you know Eligio Bishop?
Yes.
How do you know him?
I met him online years ago, and I've been in his group for some time.
When did you first come to learn about Mr. Bishop?
Around 2017, when I saw him online with his group of people, um, just parading in nature.
And how old would you have been at that time?
I would say maybe my early 20s, 23.
And sort of what was going on in your life at that point?
Around that time, I was embarking on my own spiritual journey. I kind of lost touch with myself around that time. I was going through a depression as well. I left the church because of things going on in the church that I deemed to be, wasn't right for me. And I was looking for God. So when I found God, it was in nature, and it was through the
This is
teaching
Janae.
going into nature, Ezekiel Bishop's teaching going into nature.
So what was appealing to you at that point in your life about Mr. Bishop and what he could offer?
A lifestyle. It was about living in tune with self and the community, and about love and speaking righteously and being righteous, and also living with integrity and honesty.
And when did you leave home to go stay with Mr. Bishop?
I left home in tune.
And at that point, where was the group?
The group was in Atlanta, Georgia.
And how old would you have been then?
Man, I would say around 25, 26.
When you first got to the group, were they in a house, an apartment, something else?
Yes, they were in a house.
Okay, approximately how many folks were there?
Like 20 people, around 20 people, 25.
Okay. And how was it? Like when you first got there, what were your sort of first impressions?
This was the people that I watched for years. So I was very excited, and everybody was very welcoming. I initially met the group before I got into the home.
Tell us about that. When did you meet them?
So I met them at a party because I was invited. But also before then, they walked into my job. I was working at a raw vegan restaurant in Atlanta called Sis-Lo's Raw Reality. And since then, they told me to hit them up whenever.
So, hold on, I don't mean to interrupt, but all right, so you're working at a vegan restaurant,
Mhm.
and what happens?
When I'm working at that vegan restaurant, they happened to walk in the men. It was him, Ezekiel Bishop, and the men. And they recognized me. And I went up and hugged some of the men. And Ezekiel Bishop also recognized me and tried to flirt with me and told me to call him while he was leaving. But I never did really call. But his members actually, encouraged me to come visit more. And, I even gave my phone to one of them because they needed phones and I had extra.
Okay, so you said they recognized you. Do you know where they recognized you from?
Absolutely, online. I was a part of the online base of people that, agreed with their teachings. I would say I was a part of their group online for quite some time, and I traveled to Thailand and just to live the knowledge that they spoke. So they noticed me from online.
And so from the time that you met in person in the restaurant to the time that you joined the group in Atlanta, about how much time passed in between those two?
Excuse me?
About how long was it between when you met with Mr. Bishop and the other men in the restaurant before you moved in with them?
I would say 2 to 3 weeks, maybe.
And did you have any other plans going on in your life at that time?
Yes, I was going to quit my job, which I did, and move to Bali, Indonesia to become a yoga teacher. I had the ticket booked and everything.
And what caused you to forego the trip to Bali to go with the defendant?
The members of the tribe was encouraging me to become a member of their tribe and just forget about my trip to Indonesia, just to become part of the family. They said it was part of my purpose. So,
And just so we're clear, when you say the tribe, what are you referring to?
Early Hill Bishop's Cult.
When you, do you remember, you said it was 2020, when you first moved in with them, what happened to like any personal belongings of yours?
Usually you share anything with the cult. You share anything with the tribe. Everything goes to a closet, or sometimes the men would take away your belongings. I remember that they search. First, they searched your belongings just to make sure you didn't bring anything that they didn't like or agree with. You know, they would throw away things if they don't agree with it, or like some types of soaps or, you know, certain things. But yeah, it will be searched and put away.
And when you came, did you have any like personal documents with you, like or credit cards or things of that nature?
Yes, I did.
And what happened to those items when you entered the group?
Well, per se, for me, for some reason, I was able to keep mine. But however, I was told to give all my money to one of the members, which was a man. So I cashed out everything that I had.
Were you given a new name when you entered the group?
Judge, I'm gonna object to what this has to do with March 24th, 2022. I don't think it has relevance to it. I would ask that we get to that.
Mr. Coveney?
The context is here, and I believe that intrinsic evidence is intrinsic is what is necessary to complete the telling of the story. All of this is intrinsic.
All right, overrule the objection, you may continue.
Janae, were you given a new name when you joined the group?
The first time, no. The first time I joined the group, no. I kept my name, which was Nateri.
Okay, how did you get the name Nateri?
I named myself
And when did you, was that before or after you joined the group?
before.
How would you, when you first joined the group, how would you describe Mr. Bishop?
When I first joined, he was very kind, and he was very charismatic. Also the tribe, the cult, the tribe, they were also that way. I believe that he was very, you know, caring at one point.
And were there rules in the group?
Yes, there were a lot of rules in the group. For one, the men weren't allowed to talk to the women and vice versa. And when I came in, it was very hard for me because it didn't make sense. So I made a complaint to Eligio Bishop, and he then went ahead and changed the rule around. But then after some time, possibly a week to a month, 3 weeks to a month, he changed it right back to women not being able to talk to the men.
What were the sleeping arrangements?
Everyone sleeps everywhere. There were people sleeping in the dining room, in the living room. Only Eligio was allowed to sleep in the master bedroom, though it wasn't his house. And all the other members were, had, even a couple, there was the times when we did have couples, the couples slept together. But Eligio had a set of women sleep with him only in that room.
And where did these rules come from?
Eligio Bishop.
Were you able to, was anyone able to say no to the rules?
No.
What would happen if you did?
You when you disrespect Eligio, you would be either go in the corner or around this time. This is what around this time. What I saw, you would either go in the corner or do squats or be reprimanded or shunned. This was the first time I was there.
Were there rules related to romantic relationships?
Yes.
What were those rules?
At the time, the first time I was around, he would put people together. He would say that they have a choice, not necessarily in my particular situation that I had a choice, because my choice wasn't accepted.
What do you mean by that?
There was a male that I wanted to be with that was a part of the tribe, and the tribe was polygamous, so he was already with a woman. So I believe that I could be able to be with him, but he wouldn't allow that. He would just say that he's the only one that's supposed to be polygamous in the group.
So I just want to be clear because you're using the word he. The man that you wanted to be with, what was his name?
His name is Courtney Pete Townsend,
Okay.
but in the tribe, the cult, his name is Solar.
And so you wanted to be with Courtney, and who was it that was not allowing that to happen?
Eligio.
And why was that?
There's no object, I think that's speculation.
Response.
Do you, if I could rephrase the question.
Okay.
Do you know why?
Personally, no, but he
Okay.
would, always tell us that
You
he's
say
the
it's
king.
no object, I would ask that objection be.
Oh, I can move on. Your Honor.
All right, Sustained. Go ahead.
What did members of the group call Mr. Bishop?
He had many names.
There's, again, I'll object for purposes of relevance, it has nothing to do with March 24th, 2022, what people call him in the group.
Mr. Coveney?
It is absolutely relevant. It's intrinsic evidence. It goes to consent. It goes to all of that.
All right, overrule the objection. We'll come in.
What were some of the names that Mr. Bishop was known by within the group?
He was named Baba G, Poppy, King, Chief, Father Tahuti, and that's all I know.
How did the defendant refer to the world outside of the group?
Hell. It was hell for us.
Did he say why it was?
Judge, I don't object, it has nothing to do with March 24th, 2022, how his description of what happened in the world outside.
Mr. Coveney?
Same response. It does.
I'm going to allow the testimony, and if you want to have a standing objection to,
After the court, they make a standing objection.
of course. All right. Go ahead, but the intrinsic evidence and testimony is allowed.
Why did the defendant in this case refer to the outside world as hell?
I'm going to object that the question is based on speculation, why he did it.
So I'll sustain that objection. Rephrase the question.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, did the defendant explain why the outside world was hell?
Yes, he did. He basically told us that the outside world was Babylon, and it was going to crash down, and Mother Nature is going to wipe it all out. But the chosen were able to stay with him, and the chosen are his disciples. So we consider ourselves his disciples and to follow him. He was the Christ.
Did he allow you to maintain communication with your family and friends outside of the group?
No,
When people left the group, how did he respond? When people left the group, how did the defendant respond to that?
he, when someone wanted to leave, we, as a tribe, would, excuse me, when someone wanted to leave the tribe, they would be reprimanded by him and by the cult members. The members would tell them how they're wrong.
That would be hearsay based on the people who not testifying.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. You can't talk about what other people may have said other than Mr. Bishop.
Absolutely not. Okay.
So, how did Mr. Bishop respond when people left the cult? Not like what was said, but like what was his response?
He didn't like it, of course. Sometimes he would play off like we could leave. Other times he would just tell us mean things and call us names and tell us how wrong we are for leaving.
At some point, did you leave the group?
Yes, I left the group. 3
Good.
times.
Okay, let's talk about the first time that you left the group. About how long had you been in the group when you decided to leave?
The first time I decided to leave, I believe I was in the group for about 5 months or so. 3 to 5 months.
And what happened, or did something happen that led to you wanting to leave?
Well, the first time I left is because I was voted out. And he told me, we had a meeting, and he was trying to tell me that me having feelings for another man was weak. And he should basically be the only one I should be wanting. So the tribe, the cult, went ahead and agreed with him to cast me out. And it was basically a test, like he likes to say. Um, Whenever we're told to leave, he expects us to fight for our right to be a part of his discipleship and a part of the chosen. So he would basically tell us, go ahead and go, you leave, go leave. And that's what happened the first time. I didn't take that as a test, though. I thought I was literally supposed to leave. So I made my arrangements and I left.
Where'd you go when you left?
I went back to my home in Atlanta.
About how long did you stay away from the group?
About 10 to 11 months.
When you were away, were you communicating with anybody within the group?
Yes,
Who was that?
Solar.
What drew you back to the group?
Solar.
And do you remember when you went back to the group, when you went there the second time?
No, I don't per se remember, but I remember the year. I believe it was in 2021.
Okay. Where were they at that point?
They were in Puerto Rico. And also, it wasn't just Solar that brought me back to the group. It was also Eligio Bishop.
Okay. Tell us about that.
One night at 5:00 a.m., I saw a message from Eligio Bishop. He told me that he had a dream, and he said that I was supposed to be with Solar. Now, around this time, me and Solar have been privately communicating. However, for some days I haven't heard from him. So Eligio decides to text me and said, "Come back home. You're supposed to be with this man. I had a dream." So the next day we had a call, and he made arrangements for me to go back to Puerto Rico. He bought the flight and everything. So I made my way back to Puerto Rico in hopes and in expectations of being with the other man that I loved.
Had anything changed about the group while you were gone?
Yes, the location, of course, but the group got a bit more violent from the first time I've seen.
What do you mean by that?
I would say that I heard.
Judge, I object. I don't know the relevance of that, March 24, 2022.
Mr. Covey believes that there's a standing objection on that ground. This is absolutely intrinsic. It is also covered by the court's pretrial ruling on one of the court's pretrial rulings.
Well, I think she could testify to what she actually witnessed, but I think if she's going to testify to what she heard someone else say, that's probably.
That's a different objection. Okay.
Agreed.
So again, you can testify as to what you saw, you observed, you experienced, but
Yes.
not what someone else told you happened.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you yourself observe, as in see or hear anything in Puerto Rico that led you to believe that there was violence in the group?
Absolutely, yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Okay, I can account for 4 times that I remember. For one, we was traveling around the islands of Puerto Rico, and we ended up being in some kind of Airbnb. What happened is that I seen him,
When you say him,
Eligio Bishop. I seen Eligio Bishop basically abuse one of the women that he calls his wives. This one was Aya, but what happened was he placed his head on top of her head and mushed her back to where she fell back. Then I saw him drag her into another room, and after that I heard a lot of banging and certain things. and he left the room very angry. He was very angry because she was upset with him, and he was speaking to her, say you're going to leave me, say you're going to leave me. And when I went into the room after the banging, just to check on her, she was on the floor crying and had cuts and bruises on her, open cuts and wounds. So I went to her and I grabbed the aloe off of the dresser and I covered her cuts.
In addition to that incident, were there any other incidents of violence that you observed in Puerto Rico?
No. After that,
No. Okay. Was there anything else different about the group in Puerto Rico?
yes, the group had outside. The group had a downstairs and there was an upstairs. And there was a home that only he was allowed to be in. The others had to be downstairs in tents or huts or whatever.
And was that different than the sleeping arrangements in Atlanta?
Yes, in Atlanta, we were in tents.
Were you allowed to be in a relationship with Solar when you went back?
No, he kept me away from Solar a lot. He basically told me that he only lured me back there for content, and it was all a hoax, that he was never going to let me be with him, and he was going to initiate a fight between me and the other woman that he wanted me to be against, which was his Solar's first wife.
Who's that?
Her code name is Zilka, but her name is Jayon Marine Hamilton.
Had the teaching changed, like the defendant's teachings?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
It went from being a part of nature and being one with the all, and we are all gods and goddesses that walk the earth. Then it just went to him becoming the Almighty God, Jesus Christ, God figurehead. And we were all part of his mind. And we did not exist. And the only thing that exists was him.
How long did you stay that second time?
The second time I stayed a month.
Why did you leave?
I left for two reasons. For one, I was sick and tired of being stuck in the upstairs. He kept me away from the commune. And he went to Atlanta to party and do all these other things while he had me and another woman stuck up in the house doing nothing, just wasting away there. And I was growing tired of it. I remember once asking to go downstairs just to be with the community of people that I came to live with, and I wasn't allowed to. So I got upset with that and I left. And I started to feel horrible because I couldn't be with the person I wanted to be with in the first place. The second reason is because of the abuse that I heard the day I was leaving, made me push to go. He wasn't there, but one of his members abused one of his wives there. And I heard the whole thing, the screaming, the traumatic, everything.
So that was when Mr. Bishop was not there, that was two other members fighting?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, I remember while I was in Puerto Rico, I remember another account that he's abused one of his women. I heard her screaming from the top of her lungs one night. And
Who was that?
this particular one, her name is Malia. Her code name is Malia. Malia was screaming from the top of her lungs, saying, "I'm sorry." And it woke up everyone in the home. And all you can hear is him beating on her really, really bad. No one did anything. I froze. I didn't know what to do.
And when you left that second time, was the group still in Puerto Rico at that point?
Yes, they were still in Puerto Rico when I left, and then they traveled somewhere else after I left.
How long were you away from the group?
After that, I would say some months.
Some months?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when you went back the last time?
I went back the last time, for the third time, December 26th, 2022, or 21.
21?
Oh, yes.
Where was the group at that point?
The group was in Atlanta, Georgia.
And how, had anything changed about the group from the last time that you were there?
Yes, I believe that I thought they got better. The house was different, of course. There were no tents, but they were very much nice to me when I came the third time.
About how many people were living there at that point?
It was just him and his women, so I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women, and me.
Where were the guys?
The guys were in the Pennsylvania location. He has separated the women from the men again.
How long did that last?
That lasted some months.
Now that we sort of have the timeline set out, I want to talk about your relationship with the defendant.
Yes.
When you first joined the group, how would you describe your relationship with the defendant?
Friends. We were friends, but also he was the head in charge, so I was basically his disciple. And then he would make me his lover and take me and become his wife, one of his wives.
Did anything happen, or when was the first time that something happened that made you believe the defendant had a sexual interest in you?
Yes, it was weird because I never looked at him that way. But when he told me, he said, I went to him and hugged him. That's what happened. I went to him and hugged him because I love to give hugs.
So let's put this on the timeline. Was this the first time you were in the group?
Yes.
Okay, about how long, do you know, like, was it right when you got there, a couple months, couple weeks?
It was some weeks. It wasn't when I got there. Right when I got there, he was just, everybody was already coupled. He already had his chiefess there. Everybody was, in their relationships. Yeah.
Okay, so you said some number of weeks after you got there, tell us what happened.
I went up to him and hugged him, and he said to me, "You might be ready to have sex with me soon."
And what happened next?
After that, I didn't know how to take that, but when I went ahead and asked any other member, it was looked at as a high honor to sleep with him. So, but I didn't take anything of it. I just brushed it off, I guess.
Did you eventually develop a relationship with the defendant?
I don't want to answer that question.
At some point, did the defendant and you have sex?
Yes.
And was that first time when he hugged you, or was it sometime?
Sometime after that.
And
I went upstairs, and sometime after that, that was the first hug. And then sometime after that, I went upstairs to hug him again after good night. Like I said, I'm a hugger. And he held me in his arms after that. And the women that was in there closed the door. And he basically ordered me to take a shower. And he set up his closet with lights and candles and incense and music. And around that time, I told him, well, I wanted to be with Solar. And I made that known to him that I wanted to be with another man. And he tried to convince me over and over how that wasn't going to work. And he's this big chief and he's this guy I should be with. Um, Long story short, he basically was trying to convince me to have sex with him that whole time, and I was kind of scared because that was one of my biggest fears. At one point, I didn't want to sleep with him at all. It was scary. And he just told me, at one point I couldn't open up to him as he was trying to come examine me. And he told me it's because you're scared, you have to relax. And I breathed, and that's how that happened.
And did you share his desire for a sexual relationship?
No, I never wanted any sexual relationship with him.
And over the course of your time in the group, did you and the defendant have a sexual relationship?
Yeah.
And did you care about him? Yeah.
Yes.
During the course of your time in the group, did the defendant ever ask you to allow him to film the two of you engaged in sexual activity?
Yes.
And was that something that you were initially wanting to do?
No, absolutely not. I actually told him sometimes that I was uncomfortable with being recorded.
How
But
did he respond to that?
he doesn't, he just brushes off, like he just tries to convince you how it's good and he likes it and it's for a bigger purpose and how it will grant attention and all this stuff.
Did he explain why he wanted to film it?
Yes, the third time when I was in the cult, he described it as sexual education. So he wanted to post these videos for the community to know how it is to have sex, I guess.
And was there ever any sort of like agreement that he could do whatever he wanted with these videos?
Yes, he always would have his phone. Always had the access to do whatever he wanted. It was never a question or doubt anyone should have with him.
Did you consent to allowing him to distribute these videos forever or just in the moment?
In the moment when I was there, I was definitely, I would say, brainwashed, and he would definitely convince me that it was for a bigger purpose, which we all wanted to be there for the bigger purpose. So for me personally, I thought I was doing something good.
The last time you went back and when you were in the group, late 2021, early 2022, did you observe violence within the group at that point?
Like the last time?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
And did you ever observe the defendant be physically violent with any of the women in the group?
Yes. I'm going to tell about two of them that I remember. One of them being the most gruesome would be with who he deems to be his queen, which is Plea. She got an attitude or was just feeling down one day while we all were together. It was just me and the women and him, Aaliyah Bishop, in the bathroom. Malia was naked, as we all, we don't have a problem with nudity in the cult. So she was naked.
Hold on one second. Can you guys approach her? Please, I'm sorry. me pull up,
There's a charge like this that includes this.
Okay, guys, real quick, while taking a little brief intermission or whatever it is they're doing. I just want to say that the defense on the statement she just made about she never wanted to have sex with him or X with him, the X word, whatever, that can be challenged. That can be challenged from the defense's standpoint. If they don't know, they don't know. But that can be challenged. And again, I am not for Alicia Bishop. Okay? I am just giving a perspective from legal standpoint.
I'll be back. You can't say.
Okay, while they are on a recess, let me say this, guys. Um, while they're on a recess, let me say this. When she said that she never wanted to be intimate with Nature Boy, and the prosecutor asked Janae, did she ever want to be intimate with Nature Boy? And she said no, she never wanted to be. Well, if any of you that follow them recall, there is a video where you remember when Malia left out of the house where they were raided, and she was upset and she was throwing a fit outside. And at first, he was like, just let her go, let her go. And then he told them, y'all just go ahead, go ahead. And they all went out after her and they were beating her up and chasing her out on the street and all this and that. And one of the main people that said something was Janae. And she was yelling, you complain, you get all the D. You get all the D. Don't none of us get it. You get it all. And this, that, and the other. So now, listen, I'm all for you getting your prosecution. But I'm just saying, you got to be careful what you say, because don't perjure yourself. Because if you perjure yourself in any slight way, the defense can take that and switch it and discredit your whole testimony. Like, if you lied about this, who's to say you won't lie about that? Now, I am not, again, don't want you all to think that I am doing this from for a legal thing. I'm doing it from a legal perspective. You have to be careful. The prosecution got to be careful on what they say. The defense has to be careful on what they say. You're trying to avoid a conviction or get one. But that's that. I mean, So they can pretty well have called for a recess You know what I'm saying? Because at this point, she need to be careful what she says. And some of the stuff I don't understand why he's leading into all of this, some of this information because it's unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? It's like some of the information might be valuable in building character or showing history of his violent tendencies and things like that. But what's not looking good is the fact that she was able to come and go as she pleased the whole time. And that even though she said she came there for one person, she stayed for months in or weeks in or lengths of time without know what after she found out that she wasn't going to allow to be with the person or what have you. So it's so some of that stuff I don't see why the prosecutor brought out because it could very well be damaging to the point that he's trying to prove. And again, you got to know that all you got to do is give that jury some reasonable doubt. And she kind of shaky on her testimony. Now, let me tell you about the other stuff. The key point that the prosecutor made is this trial is based on what happened on March 24th, 2022. This case is not based on his history as a cult leader, his history as an abusive person, his history as a sexually violent person, a narcissist, a domestically violent person. This is not what this is based on. It's based on the actions that happened on March 24th, 2022. So even once Velvet and the other young lady comes in, yes, it'll show history that he had violent tendencies and things of all nature. But what happened to them is not what's on trial here. You understand what I'm saying? So even though all of those things were horrible, and had they pressed charges then, especially for that child being torn up the way she was torn up and then Velvet being beat down the way she was being, if they had pressed charges then, then listen, all of this stuff could be relevant. All of this stuff can be relevant. Yes, it shows that he has his history of being violent and this, that, and the other. But all of these things took place far before, some of that stuff years before 2022. You know what I'm saying? So it does give room for the defense to shape this testimony a bit and create some reasonable doubt. But he's got to know what he's doing, and the prosecutor at this point stopping right here and asking for a recess probably was a good thing because they need to listen. Janae, you're doing a good job, honey, but we want you to stay focused on what happened to you between you and Leo, not on this other additional stuff. And the prosecutor needs to change his direction of question because it's leaving too much room to say that she had a lot. She had a lot of say on her movement, whether she could come and go and all this, that, and the other. And then the fact that an Uber was waiting outside for her, the fact that she went back in to say goodbye to the person who had just uh, abused her physically, intimately, it kind of shakes the credibility. And then for her to say that she never wanted him that way, but to say that she made love to him, and then to say that on that video that Malia was the one that was always getting the D and this, that, and the other. So, the defense got to, I mean, the prosecutor got to do better with his line of questions as well. Because some of his line of questions is leading her to give the wrong testimony, if y'all understand what I'm saying, especially when you're trying to get a conviction. This is what I'm thinking. But let's see what happens. They taking a recess. I'm gonna take a pause through the calls. Give me a little something to drink. You guys do the same, and we'll be back.
One zero.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, you agree?
I think you can take it to this.
Well, yeah, that's my next question was,
Because I don't know.
use your mic.
I'm sorry. Has the court issued an order, has there been an order pertaining to the court's ruling on the 415, 440? Not that I think.
Yeah.
You didn't submit an order?
We submitted briefs, and Caroline had indicated that there would be an order forthcoming.
Okay.
I can submit an order, I wasn't asked for one, but
Okay, well, I'm kind of in between staff attorneys, so that probably got lost and shuffled. My apologies for that. Okay, if you could submit a proposed order, I'm allowing them in. I think I said that at the hearing too. Did I?
you said it in an email.
I did,
Yes.
okay.
It was communicated
all right,
to us,
yes.
it's just not a file order.
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, let's get that order in place. Somebody's alarm is going
My
off.
wife, I don't know how to stop it.
Oh,
It's not.
that's okay. Yeah, mine did that too. I think there's something called theater mode.
Okay.
You could, is it an Apple Watch?
It is a lot.
I can't help with that. I don't know. In order to prove its case in which counts pertaining to 1.3, do you have 1.34.10 in front of you? Okay, so in order to prove its case in,
Agreed.
you agree? Okay. Counts 1 and 2. Actually, is Mary, make me a quick copy, please, of, I think I just need, yeah, 21, 22, and pages 21, 22, and 23.
The reason I was asking about the order is the court had not, I guess, indicated what purpose it was in for,
Right.
what scope, and so that's kind of what I was hoping that we would see.
Yes, no, that's fair.
So,
Okay. All right, Mr. Coveney, can you provide that information, please?
So
What is your see if I agree with what your purpose is.
Right, the state's purposes were intent and motive. Primarily motive, but it was intent and motive were what were on the motion that we filed.
Okay.
So, like I figured, I do believe that the defense is challenging the prosecutor's line of questioning.
All right. Counts 1 and 2. Intent and motive. So it would be, so it's not identity. All right, you guys approach and help me figure out which, I wanna make sure I get this right, make sure we're getting great.
Yeah, they're trying to get that together, and yeah, this is going to be interesting, y'all. Like I said, it's not that they can't get a conviction, but they got they have to prove this case without doubt, with reasonable doubt. I mean, without reasonable doubt, and they have to come with some really substantial evidence. So let's see what happens. This is interesting. I don't know what happened. lost the um. Let's see. I don't know what's going on with the live feed, but I am not. Hold on, y'all. It's like not at all, not happening. You hear me? Let me see. It's just one. I don't know if they lost the feed or what, but it's not streaming at all now. Let me check a few other things. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, so it looks like they're on recess and they'll probably be on recess for about an hour. So I'm just going to let the stream stay open and we'll see what's going on. Hold on. Hey guys, just checking in. We're still waiting on them to resume. They're supposed to resume at 1:30. So I'll be checking back periodically. Hey everybody, while we're waiting on uh the court to come back in session, I wanted to share some breaking news. Broke this morning. Unfortunately, I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, especially news like this. But this morning, it's been announced that talk show this got me talk show host Wendy Williams has been diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia and frontotemporal dementia. This is the same disease that Bruce Willis is suffering from. She was diagnosed with very progressive aphasia and frontotemporal dementia in 2023, and those diagnoses have enabled her to receive the care she requires, according to press release. Primary aphasia is a form of frontotemporal dementia. The decision to share this news was difficult made after careful consideration, not only to advocate for understanding and compassion for women, but to raise awareness about aphasia and frontotemporal dementia and the support of thousands of others facing similar circumstances. Wendy is still able to do many things for herself. Most importantly, she maintains her trademark sense of humor and receiving the care she requires to make sure she is protected and that her needs are addressed. She is appreciative of many kind thoughts and good wishes being sent her way. For those who do not know, primary progressive aphasia is a neurological syndrome in uh, language capabilities become slowly and progressively impaired. The National Aphasia Association notes that unlike any other forms of aphasia, primary progressive aphasia does not result from a stroke or brain surgery, and instead is caused by the deterioration of brain tissue important for speech and language. So it's unfortunate that at some point in time, she will probably lose her ability to speak and her ability to remember the people that she loved and care about. And eventually she'll be decline and deteriorate. And I'm just praying for her at the height of her career that something so devastating could take place. And now, from just pray for Miss Wendy Williams and pray for her family. Um, there's also some breaking news that one of the executors on the Sherry Shepherd show, who also came, who was inherited from uh, the Wendy Williams show, was found dead in his New York apartment after there were allegations that money had been missing. And I will share more on that story a little bit later as I get an opportunity to take a look into it. This is a breaking news story, and I appreciate you guys chiming in. Hey guys, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. I will come back a little bit later and do some coverage on the Nature Boy trial. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.